Hi everyone, I am Josh. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to my bookish voyage. Today I'm going to give my October TBR. First thing that I did not read was Reef World by Clive Barker. And I'm saying this because I think I got through 25, maybe 50% before I DNF'd this. And I'm glad that I did. It helped get me in the right mindset for October. I just wasn't feeling it, and I was really hoping I would. This is a dark fantasy about some magic carpet with a secret world in it. Clive Barker made Hellraiser. He wrote the story, a short story that was inspired the movie Candyman. I really thought it was like this, but it just wasn't horror enough. It was too dark fantasy, and it was too basically generic. It didn't feel that unique, so I had to give it up. And I just wanted to acknowledge that I DNF'd this. Yay me. Next is a book that I read. Obviously, it's on this video. Well, I guess that one wasn't, so it's not obvious anymore. P. Jelly Clark's Ring Shout. This one, I really should have checked my ratings before I did this, but they're all on Goodreads if you want the exact score. My feelings around this one, I want to say, was between 3.5 and 4 stars. It was good. It was well crafted, but I think I overhyped it, and because of that, the overall experience just wasn't that great. Part of it was that the narrator for this I thought was not very good. She was very histrionic and over the top in a way that just wasn't very effective. After a while, it did grow on me, but it makes me really nervous to read his other books because she really wasn't that good, and I'm pretty sure she narrates most of his works, if not all of his works, on audio. This is the story about Jim Crow, the KKK are basically monsters, or are teamed up with some demonic monsters who are trying to attack and kill black people. And this follows one woman who makes it her point to fight them, and she uses sort of her power, her ancestry, to do that. At the core of this, I can't say exactly why it didn't quite work for me, what I wanted more from it. The way I keep thinking about it is that it felt a little simplistic despite its really well developed world. The actual story just felt like there wasn't a lot there. We have the basic theme, the basic setting, which is really well thought out. But the actual execution, it's like we have our hero, protagonist, and we have a villain. And hero defeats villain. That is a mass oversimplification because there's more to it than that. There are more subtleties, and there's definitely more to be said than your average just hero defeats villain. But at the end, though, I didn't really feel the threat. I kind of knew things would probably end up well. And I guess that shouldn't hurt a book, but it kind of does. It's like when you predict a twist in a thriller, which I don't usually do, but like if I don't feel that threat, it's just hard to get invested. And that's the other thing, is that despite how well our world was developed, I didn't feel like our characters were that well fleshed out because I didn't feel that strong connection. Like I could empathize with their situation on a fundamental level, but on an individual basis, I didn't really feel that connection, which was unfortunate. I thought as a novella it would work really well, but in this case I guess the novella didn't really help it. The next one, though, was one that was a much more positive experience, The Between by Tanner Readu. This is a science fiction horror psychological book about a man basically suffers a near-death experience, and then he starts to believe that he is jumping between worlds, like in a mental state, meaning he believes that he might be experiencing other versions of himself. He never quite knows what his world is like. It's always slightly different. But in every world we have this white supremacist terrorist who's trying to kill him and his family, and it might or might not be related to this ability he seems to have. Now, this ability isn't like a superpower. It's more like something that is just really hard to understand. It feels as if like it's not clear that it's even real to us or to him, and it's something he's trying to understand, like what the hell's going on. That's the premise of it. It's what it gets set up in the prologue of this, and I loved it for being a multiverse thing, and I thought it did a really good effective job as a psychological story, and I thought it was really effective. I really cared for our characters here, unlike in that story. I'm just very happy with it. I don't want to say I wasn't expecting it to be good, but I think it helped in this situation that I was a little worried that maybe it wouldn't be as good. Like, I know it's an older book, and while I like some Tanner Readu's books, some of them haven't always hit as hard as that first one. So it's nice to find one that is just as good, if not better. And I do recommend it. This book was just released on audio back in October, so it's a sort of a new release of an old book from the 90s, and I must say it really holds up really quite well. Next is The Confessions of Florence Langston. This one I want to say I gave about 4 stars. I think I would just say it 4 stars. It's not quite 4 to 4.5, but not quite so low as to be 3.5 to 4. I liked this. It felt more of like just a traditional historical fiction than it did actual thriller, but it is technically a thriller novel, and it's about this woman who escaped slavery, or rather is sold out of it. Anyway, she gets sold out of it, and she becomes a maid, or like a house servant to this group of people, and she starts to build relationships that she feels is maybe better than her old life, but at the core, I think we know it's not quite there. Like there is this period of positivity where things feel so wrong to the point that I thought this book was going in a direction I could not be comfortable with, and then it ultimately went in the direction that made more sense of what the point the author was trying to make. It was a very effective novel. It follows basically the story of Franny Langston. I just told you like her outline of what her life is like, but it's her telling her story as she is on death row for killing someone, or supposedly killing someone. So it's like a slow reveal of how or if that happened, but it doesn't quite remember why or how it happened. And we're all sort of trying to get the conclusion of how that happened as her history is being told. Next is The Year of the Witching. Okay, so this review is not necessarily spoilery, but there are some broad plot points, like some broad direction that the story goes in that I will touch on. So if you don't want to do that, you can skip forward to the next book. Flipping back to a book that was, I think, overhyped in my mind. Not overhyped by others, but to myself. And because of that, it wasn't as effective as I'd hoped. This, I think, had a lot of imagery or comparisons to The Witch. In the setup, we have this puritanical society, and our main character is a young girl within it, and she finds out she might have connections to witches, or either there are witches that seem to be attacking their town, and she gets accused of being connected to them at least. And the direction it goes in on multiple levels just didn't work for me. Like, I get the fundamental principles of this, I understand. Like, it's about getting past the hatred that comes from being attacked or being oppressed, and trying to make progress from that rather than just lashing out. But as a horror novel, I was hoping there would be more lashing, which doesn't make it quite a good of an arc of a story, but I think it would have been a very satisfying one on a horror novel type level. And what we end up getting, I don't think is impossible, but I also think it's much more nuanced conversation, and that is much more difficult to achieve naturally, especially in a puritanical society where, I mean, today people are far from reasonable to talk to, but back then, like, even more entrenched in your ideas of what is right, what is wrong, and this sort of very sexist society they live in. And what we end up getting is our main character trying to break the mold of the system that's in place in a way that felt very naive, not just from the character's perspective, but like from the author's perspective, thinking it was this simple. And it just felt like on the level of a YA book. I'm not the kind of person who thinks that, oh, it's a YA protagonist, so it must be YA. I think it has more to do with the writing. And I think the writing in this and the storytelling devices just felt like a YA level, as if like it didn't truly explore these ideas on a level that I think would have been needed for a good adult book. And maybe not all adult books do that sort of level of analysis, but I think this one was trying to do that. In fact, that it failed, so it makes it feel as if it's more YA. Also, the fact that it still felt like it played it safe. There were some dark parts in this, but it didn't get as dark as I think I was expecting for an adult horror book. A lot of it, I think, is just personal preference. I didn't love the religious side. I'm very anti-religious. I guess it's all just like, you don't stop being religious. You don't stop believing your backwards belief. No matter what happens, like, you usually are built into it. And like at this stage in society, it's basically puritanical Christianity, and like they're basically a cult then. I mean, not far from it now, but the point is, it's not something you just turn off. The fact that they try to do that in this story, it really turned it off for me. I'm so sorry if that's a little too much detail. I tried to be vague without giving like actual like hardcore details. We're now on to my classics reads week, which was sort of a mix of just me wanting to be classic horror and gothic, but also touching on some gothic and Victorian novels for Victober and Gothtober. I believe this book, if I remember correctly, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, was a book during Victorian, and I'm also pretty sure it categorizes it gothic, so I think it counts as both. This is a novella. I did not read the stories that are in here, I just read the actual main novella. And this is, if you don't know, it's sort of like this mad scientist tale of creating a monster, but a monster coming from within without revealing it. And this one was good. I think I gave it 3.5 to 4 stars. This is weird because like I had the same feelings about this, I think, as Ring Shout. Like, I feel like they're the same level to me in my mind, but I have less negative things to say about this. I think the threat was harder for me to get invested in because I knew the basis of the story. It's one of those things like with the Babadook, where once you see the monster, it's not quite as scary, but still it was pretty effective, and I thought it was a pretty solid book, which is why I'd give it between 3.5 to 4 stars, maybe closer to 4 than 3.5. Next up is Wuthering Heights, and I'm so glad that I managed to read this. This one, I have a lot of mixed feelings about. Like, the core, I liked it. I liked the dark side of it. I don't know if it was meant to be a comedy, but it certainly felt as if it was a comedy. It felt like we were getting characters who were so over the top ridiculous and so pathetic that it's hard not to laugh at them, and the eccentricity of it. But then there were parts too that were actually just legit disturbing, with characters going on a level that even I like, wow, pretty dark. Like forcing someone to a marriage is basically like, I don't know like how you do that, but I thought it was like wow, okay, first off, how does he force you into a marriage by being trapped in a room without spoiling it? And how does that work? Even if you're, I just don't understand how that works. But even then, once you've done it, like, why agreeing to it? Like, the logic didn't quite work out for me. But I think part of it is just the setting and like the cultural side of it, which was sort of part of the problem here. Listening to this, like, I was lucky because I found an audiobook on Audible that was narrated by someone from, I think she might do Broadway, but she's definitely been in Downton Abbey, and I just think she did a really good job of dictating the story in a way that was very full of emotion, in a way that, even though I didn't always follow what the dialect was trying to say, the context of the situation and the tone of her voice always helped me understand, one, who was talking, and two, what they were trying to get at, the point they were trying to get across. But it was kind of like listening or reading Shakespeare, where I liked the emotion, I liked the energy, and it seems fun, but it's also kind of story that is just hard to understand. Like, I don't always understand the dialect in Shakespeare. I think I did get more into it towards the end. Part of that is that I think we focused more on a few characters towards the end, when this is really, it spans like, of course, a bunch of people who live at this place called Wuthering Heights, and a bunch of family members who get married, who hate each other, blah blah blah, a bunch of drama, a bullshit drama. And so I got a text and now I'm getting distracted. And I liked the drama, but it was kind of confusing, and I feel like I got more into it once we got to the second half, where we focused more on these characters. This is a book that I genuinely think I want to enjoy more if I read it again, because I liked the writing and I liked our characters. I just think it takes a bit more for me to really understand what's going on a bit higher level. Like, I say this about a lot of books, but this is one that I actually really feel like this could be like a really favorite if I just give it another shot. Not that it wasn't something I enjoyed now. I think I'll give it between 3.5 and 4 stars, maybe just more to close to a solid 4. Pretty good, actually. I'm glad I didn't hate it. Next, I don't have it here, but I do have it here, but I don't want to take it out. It is The Road Through the Wall, the first book by Shirley Jackson. This one I'll give 3 to 3.5 stars. This is one that felt like the embodiment of one of her short stories from her memoirs, and it's meant to be like a rough biographic short story where we look at the small town, people with their ways, you have children acting certain ways, men and women acting their own ways. Like, it's about commentary on the society where everyone is sort of fake and has this perception to give off. And in the end, like, I liked it in the same way that I liked some of our other books, but it did not execute. I don't think it all came together very well. It still didn't feel as focused. Like, I think I compared her memoirs to What We Always Lived in the Castle in my September wrap-up, and I felt like that one all came together for a bigger purpose. This one didn't feel focused. It's like we have this area that we're studying, but for what? When we get to our central conflict, it felt rushed. It felt like it came out of nowhere. And while I get some of the takeaways that we're getting from it, I don't think the story worked well as a cohesive whole, even if it was an interesting one to get to, but also kind of slow, for being honest. So I'm a little disappointed in this. I was not expecting her books not to excite me as much. I'm hoping things will change. I do think I've heard that she gets more horrific as time goes on. But at the core of it, the very least, it was a good analysis of small towns and people, how fake they can be. And I did appreciate that. Like, I appreciate getting this sort of analysis of the human condition, particularly people who just don't want to be up front. Like, I hate the face people can put on in society, even still today. But I'm rambling now. Finally, a book that I kind of finished today, the last day of on November 1st. I'm not going to count it because I started this in October of last year. The Ghost Story by Peter Straub. 2 to 2.5 stars. The story was kind of slow to me. It just didn't work. It basically follows this group of people who tell ghost stories, all centering around, I think, one particular type of, well, they all have a ghost story, and they all share some common origin story that sort of connects them to this one entity. And the way it all comes together is interesting. The direction he went I definitely wasn't expecting it, but I think it took too long to get to the point. I think there was too much filler in between the ghost experiences. The ghost experiences were the best part of this book. They were genuinely terrifying, especially with the experience that I had, which was listening to it mostly outside on my bike at night for the added experience. For a vlog that just will not happen, though, unfortunately. it was the in-between that really just got me out of the story. I got bored, didn't want to follow, and the fact that I finished it was more to do with that I was so close to finishing it. Like, at this point, I might as well do it. And it's like, I don't regret reading this in the sense that there were some genuine scares that I appreciate experiencing. I am genuinely disappointed, though, that the book this popular did not work for me, because it's a genre I should love, and even a subgenre of that genre, supernatural horror, that should work for me, and it didn't. And I'm disappointed, because this is a big book in the horror genre, and I hate not to be able to share that joy that other people do feel for it. And that's it, everyone. That's all, folks. It's my October wrap up. Thank you for watching. If you made it to the end, go ahead and give me a pumpkin emoji, or something Halloween-y even. I don't know what my next video will be. I'm out of town this first part of November. I probably won't be making any videos. Hence me trying to get these 2 wrap-ups done for y'all. But hopefully I'll have a chance to do something that's not true. I'll at least have a vlog of my Washington experience before the end of the month. Hopefully. Maybe the start of next month. I don't know. But I'm rambling again. Here we are, saying goodbye. Thanks for watching. Hope you all have a great October. I did. I think it went pretty well. Let's hope our November is just as great. And as always, hope you have a great day, and I'll just hope you stay safe. And I will see you all next time, okay? Goodbye.